Well, good morning, and I thank you for coming by. I want to thank my colleagues from the House, Congressman John Larson, Congresswoman Chellie Pingree, and our special guest, Alec Baldwin, who is here and will say a few words in just a moment. Our country faces a lot of challenges. Everybody knows we need to work on reducing the deficit and reforming the tax code. What many people don't know is that at every turn, there are high-powered special interest lobbyists ready to undermine reforms that are in the best interest of this nation. The unfortunate reality is that it's very, very hard for members of Congress, House, or Senate to ignore the request of special interests and big donors because they often need to raise campaign funds from the very same people. Let me be clear. I honestly believe the overwhelming majority of the people serving in American politics and in Congress are good, honest people, and I believe that senators and congressmen are guided by the best of intentions. But nonetheless, we are stuck in a terrible, corrupting system. The perception is that politicians are corrupted by big money interest. Whether this perception is true or not, the loss of trust that goes with it makes it incredibly difficult for Congress to take on tough challenges and have the American public believe that we're doing it for the right reasons. The bill we're introducing today, the Fair Elections Now Act, would dramatically reform this system by reducing the influence that lobbyists and corporations have on members of Congress. The need for reform of our campaign finance system was made even more urgent by the Supreme Court case of Citizens United, which basically unleashed corporations and unions to spend as much money as they care to spend on behalf of a candidate or a cause. You can bet that big business is not going to be shy about telling members of Congress, we need your vote, and incidentally, we're players in the next election. In fact, that's exactly what happened in the last congressional election. In 2010, for the first time ever, spending on House and Senate races exceeded $1.6 billion. Outside groups spent 335% more on congressional campaigns than they did just 4 years earlier. The amount of money these lobbyists and corporations are willing to spend is expected to increase again dramatically in 2012. Some fear the Supreme Court may strike another blow against common sense campaign finance later this year. Just last week, the court heard arguments in McComish versus Bennett, a challenge to the Arizona campaign finance law. That's why I'm standing with 11 other senators and 46 House members, two of whom are here today, to introduce the Fair Elections Now Act. This act will dramatically change the way congressional campaigns are financed. This bill will allow candidates to focus on the needs of the people they represent, regardless of whether those folks are wealthy or just average voters. Candidates who volunteer to participate in this system that our bill establishes would not need a dime, not a penny from special interest groups to wage a good campaign back in their districts and states. It works pretty basically. Qualified candidates for Congress with grants, matching funds, and television broadcasting vouchers from the bill's Fair Elections Fund will help them run competitive campaigns. In return, candidates participating in the system would agree to only accept campaign donations from small dollar donors in their state. To participate, candidates have to reach a threshold in raising small contributions in their own states. For the primary, they receive a base grant that varies based on the population of the state, and a 5-to-1 match for small dollar donations up to a defined matching cap. For the general election, qualified candidates would receive an additional grant, further small dollar matching, and vouchers for television advertising. The candidate would continue to raise an unlimited amount of $100 contributions if needed to fight a bigger spending opponent. And let me be clear about this. Not only is the system voluntary, not one penny of taxpayer money would be used to fund it. We'd pay for the Fair Elections Fund by asking businesses that earn more than $10 million a year in federal contracts to pay a fee of 0.5% up to $500,000 per year. If you take a look at the largest contractors that may be affected by this fee, you will find that the amount we're asking them to contribute pales in comparison to what they already put into political action committees. This fair elections approach would free candidates from big money donor chase by encouraging them to spend more time listening to their constituents and less time with special interest groups. It's not a far-fetched idea. A lot of work has been done. As Congresswoman Pingree will tell you, the clean election system in Maine has worked very well for the last 10 years. It is used by 85% of your current legislators in Maine, and 75% of Maine voters of both parties approve it. The vast majority of Americans know that it's time to fundamentally reform our system of campaign finance. Recent polling shows support for this concept by 75% of Democrats, 66% of independents, and 55% of Republicans. It's hard to find many issues with that kind of bipartisan support. It's also supported by a lot of good government groups and former members of Congress. I want to acknowledge Congressman John Larson, who has been my ally in this fight and is the author of the Fair Elections Now Act in the House, and he's going to speak next. Especially thanking Congresswoman Pingree because she's been a passionate advocate for this issue, both as a member of Congress and before. And I also want to note that there is a Republican co-sponsor in the House, Walter Jones, who I don't think he's here yet. He may join us, but we thank him for making this a bipartisan effort.